Welcome back. We continue to remember Jesse Jackson, the civil rights leader and two-time presidential candidate. His family confirming he died earlier this morning. A close ally of Martin Luther King Jr., Jackson spent decades fighting for racial and economic justice. Our colleague MS Now's Antonia Hilton looks back at the life and legacy he leaves behind.
Many have known him as the Great Unifier, a man who dedicated his life to bridging the divides of race, class, and culture.
If you don't run, you're guaranteed to lose. When you're behind, you gotta run. You really got to run.
Reverend Jesse Jackson stood among this country's most revered civil rights leaders. Born in 1941 and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, Jackson earned a football scholarship to the University of Illinois. He transferred out after 2 years, but ultimately landed back in Chicago for graduate school at the Chicago Theological Seminary, where he found his true calling and was ordained as a Baptist minister in 1968. During his studies, Jackson became involved in the civil rights movement, and in 1965 he went to Selma, Alabama, to march with Martin Luther King Jr. King handpicked Jackson to head up the Chicago branch of Operation Breadbasket, an organization dedicated to social change and political empowerment. 3 years later, Jackson was there on the balcony at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, as Dr. King was assassinated, his murder sending shockwaves through the country and forever changing his friend. Jackson committed to keeping King's dream alive, and he founded the Rainbow Push Coalition in 1984. Its main focus to fight against federal, state, and local efforts targeting civil rights and freedoms. Jackson used his activism as a platform to launch his candidacy for the Democratic presidential nomination that same year. His campaign marked a significant moment in U.S. history, as it became the strongest presidential run by a black candidate up to that point, and he helped to bring issues of minority rights to the forefront of American politics.
I think the great challenge in this society really is for us to move from battleground to common ground, to begin to focus more on areas where our interests converge.
But Jackson lost support after making a controversial remark during an interview that was perceived as anti-Semitic. He apologized for the comments, but he couldn't make up for the deficit and lost the nomination to Walter Mondale. Jackson decided to run again in 1988 and sought the support of a wider electorate. But after winning 5 states, Jackson came in second to Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis. Jackson continued to use his voice to highlight racial inequities, even after he left the political sphere. He was a powerful orator and lectured around the world, calling for the release of political prisoners and speaking out against the war in Iraq and police brutality. In 2000, President Bill Clinton honored him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award in recognition of his decades of activism. In 2007, Jackson endorsed Barack Obama and served as co-chairman of his campaign, but not without controversy. Jackson criticized Obama on an open mic. Jackson later apologized for his comments. In 2008, 20 years after his second presidential bid, Jackson would witness the swearing in of the first black president in U.S. history. Nearly 10 years later, Jackson announced that he had been living with Parkinson's disease since 2015. The disease affected his mobility and speech. Jackson would retreat from public life and made rare appearances, like at the 2024 Democratic National Convention. A giant of the civil rights movement and a guiding voice, whose legacy will continue to shape our nation for generations.
A beautiful remembrance there from Antonia, and we're going to have more of that coming up on Morning Joe with the Reverend Al Sharpton, who knew Jackson better than any,